Fallout 4 has really good music.
Testing.
Hello, welcome to the Yetti Den. Today we're going to talk about the musical world building of the Fallout 4 soundtrack.
Okay.
For the past 25 years, prolific composer Inon Zur has shaped the sonic landscape of multiple video game franchises, including Dragon Age, Crysis, Prince of Persia, and my beloved Fallout. Bethesda has published games that feature many of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Zur's contribution as composer of Fallout Tactics, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 is quite impactful on how we as gamers interact with the series' post-apocalyptic wasteland. In fact, according to Game Tyrant, Fallout 4's soundtrack reached the number 2 spot on iTunes the week of the game's release. In an interview with Gaming Bible, Zur explains his process of discovery and planning for a new project. He says, "So I have 3 W's, right? Where, what, and why. And the why is actually the most important one, because I want to know what drives the characters in the game, what drives the plot, and I want to know how to drive the player themselves." End quote.
And so in order to create this, you have to ask these questions. Where are you going? What's your motivation? What is your story?
As I play through Fallout 4 for what feels like the first time, I can sense Zur's artistic connection to the gameplay. He is a veteran of the series, and as I prepared for this video, Mo and I listened to the 50-track or more soundtrack in the car, and even as a standalone soundtrack, Mo commented that this soundtrack sounds really good. The music not only enhances what's on screen, but it also alludes to the mystery and intrigue of the Fallout universe. As I'm 13 hours-ish into my second playthrough of the main story campaign, I can't help but look for clues into the music for upcoming plot details. The last time I played Fallout 4 was around 2015 or 2016, so it feels fresh and very new to me in 2023, especially after finally doing proper playthroughs of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. In fact, I barely remember core plot points besides a few early surprises. On a podcast called Play Watch Listen, a video game composer, Austin Wintory, discussed the importance of plot and music, even to the point where he had stated in the past that certain compositions can serve as spoilers to a story moment. This notion of non-lyrical orchestral music being so essential to the tone and mood of a storyline is really fascinating to me. I thought now would be the perfect time to highlight Inon's work as it relates to Fallout 4, since the soundtrack's impact on me is really fresh. Todd Howard, the game director of Bethesda games such as The Elder Scrolls and Fallout, has stated in the past that when he develops a game, one of the first elements of a new title is to nail down its sound via the soundtrack. And if you're a Bethesda fan, you might even notice that the Starfield music and the Elder Scrolls, what are we on now, 6? That music has already been created. So in this case, Inon recalls Todd Howard saying, quote, "Todd Howard told me about the story of the game and that it was a very intimate story about you looking for your son. So I said, how about piano? Because piano to me brings intimacy. In fact, Zur has even commented that often he will start work on the music 4 years before a game's release.
Everything I've worked on at this studio, the music started very early on, as early as the concept art for the game from when I began here in 2005. At that time, Oblivion was already well underway. But as we went on to Fallout 3 after that, that was one of the first things I worked on music-wise was the main theme. And that's always been the case, where the main theme sets the tone for everything else we do in the game.
Todd would even iterate almost day to day in the constructing of the theme with Inon, where Inon has stated that, originally he was working on his piano at home, and then eventually through the iterations of working with Todd and the other game director of Fallout 4, that they decided to take the piano into a more virtual instrument space. I'm not quite sure what software instrument they ended up using, but Zur did state that it was a combination of pianos in order to achieve the really warm, muted, but still organic feeling Fallout 4 themed piano, which I thought was really cool because when I'm doing music production, I love crafting the same kind of muted, warm, dead, overtoned, intimate piano sound of the Fallout 4 soundtrack. And I love hearing that you can do that kind of thing inside the box, as we call it in music production, which is essentially using software modeled instruments.
That's true. And I remember during the Fallout 4 visit, which was actually in 2012, I was wandering through the corridors and I basically stumbled into the artist's room. And it was the first time I actually saw them do what they're doing. I was captivated. I was like, wow, this is really what it is all about.
The piano motifs in Fallout 4 are subdued and alluring. They also have a regal element to their melodies. It reminds me of a more sinister version of a Saving Private Ryan, a Medal of Honor, or Band of Brothers musical theme. There's a nostalgic quality to the timbre of rich piano, harmonics blended with strings and brass that layer over dissonant, heart-pounding drums, and you suddenly have a minimalist yet rich musical bed to accompany the wasteland. Another anecdote that I thought was really interesting about the piano theme was that Zur had stated that, there's two chords that are kind of conflicting. He calls them notes. The way I see it is it's kind of like a C major shape to a C minor shape. And so the C major and the C minor, or I guess it's the reverse. The C minor implies the dark kind of decisions that you can make in the Fallout series. The C major kind of introduces the other side of the equation. And so there's a duality to the music, kind of accounting for the hope that you may find in Fallout's playthrough or the darker themes. And so I thought it was cool that in such a simplistic approach of a piano with tribal drums, that even with just kind of two core chord shapes, that Zur is able to still capture the essence of Fallout. And I think that's what makes his work so outstanding. Zur describes his approach to sound design in music as it relates to Fallout 4. We know that we are inside a parallel universe where in the 1950s, the world as we know it just ceased to exist. But now we are in the 2100s or whatever. There's a whole new reality that came to be. For this, I think the last music that we knew was in the 50s, right? Now from the 50s, there was like a diversion, an extraction from this music, and it went to a very unknown place. Everything that used to be played by the violin, for example, will be improvised by a primitive instrument. Let's assume that all the violins, including all the expensive Stradivarius, just cease to exist. Now we need to play, the kitchen sink or something that was left around here. Now in Fallout specifically, I created instruments that were born in this parallel reality. We help the player be inside this universe by creating these sounds that are being played on an instrument that literally does not exist, end quote. This sense of world building and imaginative instrument design perhaps captures that emotion that we as players feel when experiencing Fallout 4's soundtrack coalescing with the gameplay experience. When the audio and visual cues match, they can allude to more than what's on screen, and in that we kind of get a beautiful dissonance. So as he expands his theories on what the world of Fallout sounds like, he also takes care to not disrupt the organic sounds that, say, the Vault might produce. Quote, "It's a very interesting question because the vault is a stuffy place, but above all, the vault is very metallic. There's a lot of metallic elements there. Now, here's the trick. I can write a lot of music with metallic elements, but then what will happen? It will merge with the real sound effects that are also metallic, and it's going to create confusion. The metallic sounds usually are very sharp, so we create pads that are electronic because they will feel metallic. They will not have the attack or the percussive sound of the sound effects. It will sound somewhat technological, it will sound somewhat metallic, but it won't be the actual metal hits, end quote. My appreciation for Zur's work began with Fallout 3, and I am so often impressed with his ability to follow the story, the textures of the world, and psychology behind the player's experience. In interviews, he even stresses the point that he takes great care to respect every game world that he composes into music. His definition of success is when he can lead a trademark of his own sound, while also creating very specific compositions to every game. I think he's nailed his goal. There is a cohesiveness to each Fallout soundtrack, and yet, I find that there's something very different about Fallout 4's grandeur than the other games. If you're looking for more Fallout content like this, check out my videos on Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Stay tuned for more deep dives on Fallout 4 as I make my way through the story campaign. Thank you for watching the Yetti Den, and I will see you next time. Later.